Hello and welcome, I'm Stormo and this is Euro Truck Simulator 2 and I wanted to play this game for a particularly good reason. Primarily the fact that this game has, I guess, gained something of a cult following over the couple of years since it first released. I think it first released in either 2012 or 2013, and it sort of picked up a really interesting cult following on the internet. Basically, people sort of talked about it as a joke game. Oh my god, what the hell's going on with this weird simulator type of thing? But then people started playing it and they realized that this was actually quite a compelling game, and I sort of wanted to make a video about the fact that I've spent the better part of 100 hours playing this game over the last couple of years since I bought it, and I find it incredibly enjoyable. And rather than making fun of it or making a joke about it, I sort of just want to talk about what makes this game so compelling and so... I can't even bring myself to say it's interesting, but it's certainly just... the experience is so different, I guess, to what you might get from any other game. And I just feel like there's something here that is really worth looking into. So that's kind of what I want to do with this episode today. And just see if I can communicate why I actually legitimately love this game, and would absolutely put it on one of my favourite games list of the past few years. So yeah, so the other thing too is that I've just recently bought the Scandinavia DLC for it, and have been doing a lot of that section of the game, but also with the Scandinavia DLC, it reminded me of just what a great game this is. So the Scandinavia DLC came out a couple of, I think it was about 2 months ago from when I did this video, and I sort of thought at the time, yeah, I don't know if I could justify the money on it, but since buying it, I'm pretty glad I did, because it's pretty impressive. The other thing to note though, and you've probably, well, you may not have noticed it yet, but those of you who've played the game regularly might notice it a bit, that this looks a bit different to the regular game. It's because I'm not just running the Scandinavia DLC as well. I'm also running a mod for the game called Pro Mods. And Pro Mods, we almost took that car out. Pro Mods adds a whole bunch of extra roads and extra areas. It adds basically Western France, I think more complete version of Eastern Europe, and a few other things. It used to also add its own Scandinavia, but since the Scandinavia DLC's come out, they've scaled back their Scandinavia a bit. So it doesn't add anywhere near as much as that now. So yeah, and it's a huge map, and it's basically an open world game, and I mean that in the sense that it's not just an open world in the sense that there is an open world for you to explore, as I... oh wow, I took that corner a bit too fast there. And I got a speeding fine. That's cool, because that happens in this game. You can get fined for speeding, which is really funny. In fact, unlike a lot of open world games that involve driving, you actually have to drive by the road rules in this game. You have to take it carefully and slowly, and you see I indicated to change lanes there. You don't actually have to do that. Like, the game won't penalise you for doing that, but I do it anyway just because it's a good habit to have as we drive. We're just turning off here, and again I indicate here. There are points in the game where you do have to indicate. Most intersections you do need to indicate, but slip lanes and changing lanes on the autobahns or the expressways across the Europe, you don't have to do that. And the other thing, just while I'm thinking about it, the other thing that reminded me of this game and the fact that I wanted to make a video on it was recently at E3 during the E3 PC Gaming Conference, which was actually probably, I think, one of the most interesting conferences they've ever done at E3. It went on for a very long time, and that was probably its biggest weakness. But for the most part, it was a really good conference. But there was one point where the host, Day 9, pulled out a trucking cap and announced that he was selling out, and they played a trailer for American Truck Simulator. And I'll be honest with you, I'm looking forward to that game as much as I'm looking forward to this. Like, as I said before, this game, I think, gained this cult following from people who just thought, oh yeah, that's going to be really interesting, but they weren't sort of thinking of it as actually being really interesting. They didn't expect it, I think, to be as good as it was, and then people obviously played it, and unlike, say, all those farming simulator and agriculture simulator and all those other simulator games that are on the store, this game stands out because not only is it actually reasonably well made, it's got a few rough edges here and there, but for the most part it's pretty solidly made. Like, the graphics aren't perfect, but they're not terrible. They function. It could probably do with a few more anti-aliasing options, if anything, but it functions and it plays and it runs. But what this game has, there are two things I think this game has that sell it in its favour. One is that the driving mechanics and the driving physics are really good. They're not super, they're not super complicated to get the hang of. This isn't like one of those flight sim games where every key on the keyboard has to be used, or you need to buy, proper flight sticks and stuff like that. The thing is, though, that said, this game does let you scale it to how you want to play it. So I generally play this game on a controller, and I have my controller set up for accelerator and brake, kind of like how I'd play, like a racing game on a controller with Forza or anything like that. My dad, on the other hand, who plays a lot of racing games, and in fact owns a racing wheel of his own, he plays this game using his racing wheel, and he plays it, properly with shifting and all that kind of stuff. And you can do that because you can clutch and you can shift. He's even got like a shifter, which he mostly uses for like Forza, and I think at the moment Forza Horizon 2 is what he plays a lot of at the moment. And he does a lot of stuff on that, but then he'll play this game, so he plays it on that level, whereas I play it a bit more casually, a bit more with the controller, and all that kind of stuff. And of course you can go the full simulation. This game actually has Oculus Rift support, so you can actually put yourself into an Oculus Rift, put a wheel in front of you, and play this game as though you're actually sitting in a truck cabin. I mean, you could probably build your own fake truck cabin around this game and do it that way. There's no reason you couldn't do that. But, and it's one of those things where you'll get that level of enjoyment if you're willing to put that in. If that's how you want to enjoy this game, then you can. This game isn't going to stop you from enjoying it that way. And I think no matter how you play it or what you do to play it, the game gets a lot of its mileage from actually its literal mileage. The distances between places are huge. The world is absolutely massive, even more so if you have pro mods. So we just pull across here. I'm going to actually pull into this service station because I need petrol. Because I'm showing the wrong display there. That's my fuel efficiency display I want. No, that's my brake pressure display. I'll talk about brake pressure later, but I want that. Okay, so we're just going to fuel up here. I'm probably not going to go through the whole journey for this because it's a very long journey and it will actually take hours. So we stop the engine, we put petrol in our petrol tank, and you can do all this different ways. Like, I do this on the keyboard, so I have to take my hand off the controller to do it. But you could do it, however you wanted. And it seems at first like the idea of a game where you drive trucks across Europe does not seem like the most exciting game. But then you sit down and play it, and you start going those miles. And like I said, that's the thing this game has, is the mileage, the actual mileage. And it becomes a very relaxing, almost zen type of game. Like one of those sort of arty games where it's all just lines and colours and noise, and this game to me feels like that a lot of the time, where I can just start cruising the highway, put my foot down on the accelerator, or my index finger down on the accelerator, and just cruise along these highways at decent speeds. I disable the speed regulator when I do this because I want to go a bit faster than 90 kilometers an hour, and I understand the speed regulator is like realistic and that's how Europe works, but we're going to have to slow down. I obey speed limits because you have to, because otherwise you just get fined. And it's the same if you crash into other cars. You got to be careful. You get crash offence fines. They're not huge fines, but they just make you feel a bit guilty, especially because your truck can take damage in this game. And I rock this really nice black and green Scania truck that I drive, which is what we're in at the moment. And I have a lot of fun with it. And as you can see, the experience of just the road unfolding in front of you all the way, and just getting out and being on that road, and you see the other trucks and there's other traffic, and it feels surprisingly alive. When you're in towns, there's people on sidewalks walking around and all that kind of stuff, and you feel like a very sort of part of a very a live world. And it's not perfect. I mean, most of the cities are only really very small representations of cities. Like, even London is really just a few industrial blocks here and there. It's not like the full London experience or anything like that. And I want to pretend that that's a letdown, but it actually isn't, because it lets you get to your destination and get on to the next job really quickly. And if you had to deal with a much more complicated city layout for somewhere like London, it probably wouldn't actually be as enjoyable, I don't think. Like, we're heading off to, I think, the French town of Nantes, or Nantes at the moment. I can't speak French. I don't know how to pronounce that name. But we're heading off there at the moment, and it's going to take us a while to get there. And when we get there, we'll make our delivery. I'll probably take some time, spend the night there, because you have to rest. Although, again, that's something you can actually disable in the options. You can see on the bottom right there, there's my little sort of GPS navigation thing there, and it shows me my rest status, my fuel status, my truck damage status. There's a bed icon there that indicates my rest status. You can disable rest status if you really want to, but to me it's such an important part of this game that I always have it there. Like, trying to find somewhere to rest when you're really tired, and the game will actually fine you for driving while, if you're overtired, you will actually get fined for that as well. And it's just a really therapeutic thing, and it also helps, I think, a little bit break the journeys up a little bit, because you suddenly have to worry about day-night cycles and things like that, and I'm not staying in this lane very well. One thing that can creep up on you in this game is the speed that you can get your truck up to. So you'd be going around these what looks to be a really light bend on a motorway like this, like these corners here, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I took that bend really sharp, or worse, all of a sudden you're on your side because you just rolled the truck. And that can happen. And it's just because you let the speed get away from you. So you sort of understand why there's an actual speed limit of 90 kilometers an hour across Europe for trucks. At least I'm assuming that's why that's an option in the game. I don't know EU laws very well. I don't live in the EU, so I don't know the laws very well there. But that was always my guess as to why that was. We just changed lanes here. So, and but yeah, there's this feeling of freedom, and it's more than just the driving and the fairly robust driving physics and mechanics. There's more than that. This game does something that very few video games, regardless of their genre, do, and it's something that I think more video games could really stand to do. And not every video game will benefit from it, and not every game will, be able to really do it how it wants. This car is annoying me, but I'm going to have to stay in this lane, I think, because we're going around a corner. We're coming into some kind of intersection. But yeah, there's this thing this game does where it just gives you this world and this place, and it says, hey, do whatever, just go, do it. For example, the game, one of the fundamental aspects of this game is actually that you run your own trucking business. You drive around and you buy your truck, and you go around, you can hire drivers, you can run this whole logistics empire. You can basically become like the Lindsay Fox of Europe, if that makes sense. But you don't have to, and the game never forces you to at all. You can. The first thing that you'll probably end up doing in this game is taking what's essentially a job for hire. You get, a company will say, hey, look, we need this delivered, and there's a job market in the game, which I'll bring up shortly, but there's a job market in the game, and it'll show you, and it'll say, hey, look, this is a thing, here's a truck, deliver the thing. And when you start out, that's kind of all you're doing, just taking whatever jobs you can and all that kind of stuff. Once you get enough money, though, you can buy your own truck, and you can establish your own trucking business. You actually establish a business at the start of the game, but early on you won't have your own truck to do your own stuff with. And the thing is, you don't even need to buy a truck. You can just keep doing that as long as you want. There's no ending, really. It's an infinite amount of stuff that needs to be delivered across Europe. I did build up the cash to buy my own truck. I know some people will take bank loans, because you can do that. You can take out a bank loan and get started early. Buying your own truck gives you the advantage that you're always going to be delivering in the same truck, and you'll always be going to the same place and all that kind of stuff. So that's always a huge advantage, and it just gives you a little bit more control over what you do and how you do it. And I've upgraded my truck over the years, so it's got the more powerful version of the engine it can have and various other bits and pieces. So it's a pretty nice little truck, this one. And I'm pretty happy with it. It's not really a little truck at all, it's a huge truck. We're going to try and get past this truck, and then we are going to have to slow down slightly, change lanes. I don't know if anyone there is from Europe or been to Europe, but I'm really curious to know if these kind of Autobahn exits actually exist in Europe, because this would infuriate me, the way these side lanes, like you have the 3 lanes and then one of them just peels off. That would actually infuriate me. So I don't know if that's a thing in Europe, but if it is, then wow. The other thing you actually have in this game that I haven't been using for this video, but I usually do use it, usually when there's a speed limit I'll use it, is the the cruise control. The game has a cruise control feature, and the best part of that is that you set it and then you just take your hand off the accelerator and you can just sit there. You can basically hold it one-handed, you know, and as long as you've got a nice enough piece of road where you don't have to worry too much about you know, taking sharp turns at speed or anything like that, you can just sit there and just cruise, one hand on the controller, steering as you need to. As you can see, I'm a pretty proactive steerer. I'm doing a lot of little movements on the steering wheel, which you can see probably all through this video. It's just how I do it. You don't have to do it that way. There's also a high beam, so I can just click that on, and I have high beam, just like a real truck. The other traffic gets really narky at you if you do that. And I even obey sort of the rules of high beam in that. Like, if there's an oncoming car, I'll lower it. If I'm coming into an area with heavy lights, I'll lower it, all that kind of stuff. On a freeway like this, I don't really lower it that much. I suppose it's not a freeway. We're in Europe, so what do they call them in Europe? Motorways? Yeah, motorways or autobahns and stuff like that. Anyway, there's a bit of drawing in the background there. You can see those buildings drawing in as we get near. I think that might be Paris. Certainly a city. No, it's Cologne. Okay, so we're still in Germany. See, this is the other thing. We've been driving for this long. I've got to get to the other side of France. I'm still in Germany. I left Leipzig, not that long ago. So this looks like a really complicated intersection. I think I stay here. Yep. Okay, cool. Okay, this is a really complicated intersection. This may not be an intersection from the game. This may be one of the intersections that ProMods has added. Because ProMods changes, a lot of the Autobahn intersections in the game are very similar to each other, and ProMods mixes them up a bit more just to make things more interesting. If you do get this game and you haven't got ProMods, I highly recommend it. I'll put a link to it in the description for this video, because I genuinely think it's worth getting. It doesn't have to cost you money. You can, of course, make a donation to it if you want, but it's well worth it just because it adds a lot to this game, and to me it sort of completes the game in a lot of ways. Like, it just makes it that much more interesting above and beyond what SCS Software, who the developers of the game, have put in. And they've put in really good work, and then the ProMods guys have just put in this little bit extra that makes this game great. And you'll see, oh, he just decided to do that. That's annoying. The driving AI can be a little bit let's just say doesn't always make the best decisions for itself. I'm going to cut my high beams because we're in Europe, the sun rises and sets really early and really late. I've noticed as well. So, and I don't know if that's a Europe thing. I've never been to Europe, but I'm not used to the idea of the sun coming up at like 3:30 in the morning like it does in this game. So I don't know if that actually happens. That's a Bjork truck. Okay, that's cool. That's possibly a ProMods add-on. ProMods adds a number of transport companies as well, and there's a couple that are kind of sort of not well-known names, except that they look like well-known names. Like, there was one, I think the latest ProMods got rid of it, but there used to be actually IKEA if you added ProMods, but I think now they call it IKA or something like that, just to do it. And the game itself actually does use licensed trucks. Like I said, this truck's a Scania, and you can have, I think that DAF Mercedes was not long ago added to the game. It used to have a fake Mercedes called Majestic, but Mercedes was added not long ago. I just can't think of the other brands. Iveco, I think, is one of the other brands, and I think there might be Volvo as well, and there's a few others as well. Basically, most of the main European truck manufacturers. Here it is. This is the French-German border, so we'll just shoot through here. Because this is Europe, we don't have to worry about, like, you know, passports and stuff, so we just drive along and all of a sudden we're in France, because that's how Europe works. It's the European ideal, guys. That's how it's supposed to be. The only problem with being in France, of course, is that all their roads are toll roads. So we'll have to do toll roads. And one nice thing though that the game has that it didn't used to have, and I can't for the life of me remember if this is pro mods or if this was a change in the game, but just got a little bit too fast then. In fact, I'm actually going above the speed limit, so I should probably slow down to do the speed limit, although okay, we're out of speed limit now, so getting a bit of fog too. Looks like it's a coolish morning. Well, it's 17 degrees, so I don't know how they can be foggy. There's actually a temperature gauge. If you look on the panel between the speedo and the tacho there, there's an ambient temperature indicator under the fuel gauge there. So that's a thing that happens in this game. And this looks like a really tricky intersection, so I may need to... I need to stay in this lane. So this is the other thing that you start thinking about in this game that you wouldn't normally think about in a trucking game, which is that sometimes you get to an intersection like that one where you have to think about, oh, am I in the right lane? Do I need to change lanes? And it's all this stuff you would never think about in a million years if you were playing most open world driving games. But in this game, it's all of a sudden really important. Am I doing the speed limit? Did I use my indicator? Are those lights green? Can I make the green lights? Because if you run a red light, you're going to get fined. Because that's what happens in this game. You'll get penalised for breaking the road rules. And fortunately, the driving is robust enough to allow you to obey the road rules. I sometimes drift from lane to lane because that's just how it happens. But for the most part, I'm pretty good. I've drifted out a little bit there. And if I had the wheel and everything like that, I could probably stay in the lane a bit better. So it's just a case of just being pretty good at it. So I'm just going to take a little bit of speed off to go around. This is a pretty sharp corner here. And the other thing too, speaking of the physics, is that when you have a trailer on it, it can actually affect you. So you might notice that there my truck wobbled a little bit because the trailer got out of step with the truck. And that's a real thing that would actually happen with a real truck, because that's how these things work. And you see the sun starting to come. Now I'll try and get as far as getting some sunset. We are heading west though, so I think the sun will be behind us, which is a bit annoying, but oh well. I'll be able to turn my lights off soon, which is kind of cool. So, and that turn off there, those are the most infuriating things in this game, these turn offs where you have that lane slipping out and you've either got to just drive across the barred area there, or you have to go off. I don't know. I don't know how that works in real Europe. Do they have them in real Europe? I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much, but it bothers me a little bit. But yeah, I'm really, really loving what this game's doing. As we come into a town, so I've got to slow right down. This is going to feel really slow when I get to 70. So we're actually going through like a roadworks area. There's a few of these in the game, all over the place, and usually what it means is you just have to slow down. So I'm just using the cruise control here to maintain my speed through here. And as we hit the 100, I'll hit the accelerator and start picking up a bit more speed. Although it'll take a little while because we're going up a hill now, and being a truck, it takes me a little while to go up a hill. So I am using automatic shifting because I'm playing on a controller and I just don't have the patience to do manual shifting with 12 gears on a controller. So I'm sure there are people out there that do that. That's cool. I'm not one of them. So yes. And yeah, so like I said before though, this game just gives you freedom. You can run a trucking company. You can just take jobs for hire. The game doesn't give you any time limits to do any of the things you can do. You just do whatever you want. Like I mostly just drive around my own. I don't have any employees or anything like that. I could get them, I guess, and do that, but I don't want to. I like driving around, and I find the driving in this game so relaxing. It's weird to say, you know, for a game where the focus is on driving the road rules and making times and all this kind of stuff, that, you know, it seems like it should be actually a lot more stressful than it really is. Like, as long as I know where to go, and of course I have my GPS down there which always tells me where to go. See the balloons and the sunrise? Look at that. How gorgeous is that? Proper countryside this is. This is fantastic. And that's everything about this game. Like, it just, you try to explain this game to someone like that seems like the most boring video game ever, and it's really hard to express just how actually interesting and fun this game is, and how much time I can spend playing it too. I mean, like I said, I've put 100 hours into this game over the time. And, you know, and because why not? Why not put 100 hours into this game, you know? It's just really relaxing. I mean, I don't know if real trucking is like this, but if it was like it is in this game, I wish I'd taken up as a profession 20 years ago. It just... I mean, I know there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more to trucking than just hooning around highways and delivering goods and all that. But if the real experience is that really therapeutic zen of driving, I can sort of understand why people are attracted to that lifestyle of driving trucks. I knew a guy who was a trucker once, and he drove all over Australia in his truck. And it was, you know, I guess for him it was the thrill of the highways, you know, getting out and about, seeing the country, and you're doing a great service as well, of course. You're delivering all the stuff that people need to all over the place and things like that. But it's more than just that. You've got to, you know, make time and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, in the real world, trucking is an industry that's got a lot of problems, particularly, I don't know if it's the same outside of Australia, but here in Australia we've had all kinds of problems with trucking over the years. From schedules that force truck drivers to, you know, have to basically take amphetamines and stuff to keep themselves awake and aware, and we've had some pretty horrific truck accidents because of tired truck drivers and stuff like that. So in the real world it's not as, you know, clean as it is in the game, and I recognise that, but that doesn't stop me from enjoying this experience and having a lot of fun with this game over time. And it's one of those games that when I don't feel like playing a game, I can just pull out this game and I can just make a delivery and it kills a couple of hours, you know? And there's no, I guess there's no pressure to, you know, perform especially well. You do get ranked when you complete a job. We're going through a toll booth now, so I need to look for the automatic lane. Does this toll booth have an automatic lane? It does not, because we're in France. Some toll booths have an automatic lane. This one does not. So, got to pull up into the toll booth, got to line it up with the green thing, hit the enter button to pay our money, go through the gate, and we keep going. Some toll booths actually have a thing where you can just drive through, so it's not so bad. But you know, that's cool. That's part of, I guess, what driving trucks in France would be like. If you were driving trucks in France, you probably had to pay tolls all over the place. I'm actually really horrified by the fact that the toll booths in France are full of the motorways in France, are full of toll booths. It looks like it's getting just light enough for all the street lights to go out too. I'll leave my headlights on for a bit yet, but oh, look at this sunset. Look how gorgeous that is over there. I'm going to try and get around this corner, and I'm going to adjust my viewing angle so you can see just over there a bit. So I have separate head rotation to my point of view because of the way the game works. So I usually assign one steering to the right stick and my look to the left stick. So that's how that works. The only thing is you can't auto-center that, but fortunately the game has a number of buttons you can press to set the camera. So you can do that pretty easily. I probably need to get a rest soon too. Not too soon though. But I've got like 500 kilometers to go, but I'll probably need to get a rest before then. So yeah. And we're making it through here. Like I said, I'm probably not going to make the full delivery in this because of how much longer it's going to be. It's another 500 kilometers to my destination. So I'm well over halfway, but I'm not anywhere near where I need to be. One thing I will do actually, just while we're here, I'll just quickly hit the button so you can just quickly see this is the menu screen. So you have all your driver information, various things like that here. You have your truck. There it shows you what it is. You can get upgrades, view your truck dealers, adjust the cabin so you can adjust the seat and everything in the cabin, and even diagnostics for if it's going wrong. This is my glorious truck. I created a really nice paint job for it. It goes really well. But the other thing I'll show you just quickly is the job market. So these are the two types of jobs. When you start, you'll be doing quick jobs, and once you have your own truck, you can do the freight market. And wherever you are in the world, so we're near Reims at the moment, and if I click that, you see all the jobs in Reims, or you can unclick that and just see all the jobs that are available everywhere. And I'll give you a better view of the map, so I'll just back out of this and back into the driving screen, and then I'll just try and get a little bit further along, and I'll bring up the map screen. So this is the actual world map. It zooms out. Roads in yellow are roads that I've driven along. and roads in grey are roads that I haven't driven along. This area up here is where the Scandinavia expansion is, obviously, because it's Scandinavia. There's a few more things I think that are added with Pro Mods beyond that as well. I know for a fact the UK is much more detailed with Pro Mods, so you get these ones like Inverness and Wick and stuff like that, and yeah, the Faroe Islands and Iceland is even added. I'm pretty sure that's Pro Mods and not the Scandinavia expansion that adds those. Scandinavia, I think, pretty much only adds Finland, Sweden, and Norway. Denmark was partly covered, but not fully covered as well. But you can see here too, a lot of this area around here was added by Pro Mods, and most of this side over here of France, because France only really has this area here in it usually, but it's added all that extra stuff. And you see these dotted lines indicate like ferries and stuff like that. I think yeah, the Euro tunnels there between Dover and Calais. It's like a ferry there. You can go all the way out to Brest in France, down to Bayonne. Genova, which again I think is added through Pro Mods. A lot of these, because normally the only major Italian cities are like Venezia and Milan in general. But yeah, so Pro Mods adds a heap of extra stuff. In fact, I've just realised it's actually added Estonia as well. That's really cool. I didn't realise that was part of the Pro Mods as well, because I'm near certain that's not part of the Scandinavia expansion. So that's why I recommend Pro Mods, by the way. It adds so much stuff. It even adds the Faroe Islands, so you can go and drive around. The map's a bit rough, but yeah, you can drive around the Faroe Islands, which is really cool. And they look really cool too. Like, one thing this game can be accused of a bit, I think, is that the countryside looks pretty similar no matter which part of Europe you're in. Pro Mods tries to correct that a fair bit by adding a fair bit of extra countryside. I'll go back to driving now because it's kind of boring to just keep looking at the map all the time. Pro Mods does add a fair bit of countryside. Have I missed a turn? Something's happened there. Did I change my destination? I didn't mean to change my destination. Oh no, I've missed a turn off. Whoops. Oh well. Well, the GPS will actually like reconnect me to my route, and so we can just keep going this way. And eventually it'll figure out that I've gone the wrong way, and it will reconnect me to the route. And if not, I will just have to use the map to figure it out. So obviously we can't turn around in the middle of a motorway like this, so we're just going to have to keep going on. In fact, what I might do... Yeah, there we go. It's recalculated the route now, so got a route there. What I might do is grab a rest as we come around here, so... I'm sort of trying to avoid doing that, actually, because I don't want to miss this glorious sunrise, but we do need to rest. One thing I do find is I don't tend to keep perfect sleeping schedules when I do this, so we're going to pull into this truck stop here and take a rest for a little while, and that shouldn't take too long. So there's usually truck parking around here. I'm just probably going a little bit fast there, so I'll just cut the speed down. Oh, I went right past it. Well, we'll just go to the next rest stop. That's cool. We can do that. But yeah, so in conclusion, I'll just let this car come past before I merge. In conclusion, I think this is a surprisingly good game for what it is. I think it does a lot of really interesting stuff that you don't often see in video games, and I think once you get past the sort of, I guess, mundaneness of the concept of the game, oh yeah, drive trucks around Europe, I'm sure that'll be a fun, riveting game. But once you sit down and you play it, and you get to explore the countryside and all that kind of stuff, and if you're someone like me who loves games that let you explore and just travel around and just where the game is much more about the journey than it is the destination, then this game is absolutely perfect for that, because this game is almost entirely about the journey. We can rest here, by the way, so I'm going to pull out into that outer toll booth, and there's a rest stop, I think, on the other side of it there. So hopefully I can pull out there. We'll obviously have to pay our toll, which we'll do. Oops, got a little bit too far. Sorry. I'll just keep going forward, damage our truck a little bit. It's all good, I hope. And we'll indicate that we're going to go here, which is where the truck stop is. So I can pull into here and pull into this parking bay, and I can park my truck, and I can rest, and I will end the video. So we stop the engine, and we rest. We get some rest for most of the day, so we'll be driving at night when we come back. Start our engine again, and we can head off. But before I head off, I am going to end this video. So I hope I've given you an idea of what this game's about and why it's actually a really cool game. Very much well worth picking up, especially if you see it on sale on Steam. It goes on sale all the time, and there's no reason not to grab it. I highly recommend grabbing the 2 DLC packs as well, Going East and the Scandinavia DLC. They're both worth it. Scandinavia DLC is, I think, full price at the moment, about $20 US, but it is definitely worth getting the full game. And I very much recommend getting pro mods as well, because it adds a lot more to the game. And once you're all set up to get all those things, like I said, I'll link pro mods in the description. Once you've got all those things in place, this game is absolutely fantastic, and you can sort of understand why there's this cult following around it, because it does so many things, perhaps not brilliantly, but well enough that it is actually genuinely a well-made, fun game, and I highly recommend it. So, that's the end of this video. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.